Okay, and welcome to today's episode of Break into Law School. We are going to be talking all about law school seat deposits. So, welcome to everyone who is here. For those of you who are new and just joining me, my name is Sydney Montgomery. I am a professional law school admissions consultant, and as a first generation graduate of Princeton and Harvard Law School, I have dedicated my life to helping other students break down generational barriers to higher education. And today we are talking about seat deposits. So I'm going to hit on a couple of really important points. The first thing that we're going to talk about is what even is a law school seat deposit? What do you need to know about the deposit procedure? The second thing is how many deposits can you ethically, legally make? Can you deposit at one school? Can you deposit at two schools? Can you deposit at three schools? When is it okay to put down more than one deposit? What's the difference between putting down deposits at the same time and putting down one deposit and then withdrawing and putting down another deposit? The third thing is we are going to talk about the incident that happened at Notre Dame Law School. What went down? Where are the ethics in that? And what can we learn from that? And then last, we're going to cover asking for an extension for your deposit. And when is it okay to ask for an extension on your seat deposit? And when is it not likely to really be granted? So that is what we are going to cover today. Before we dive in, I just want to say hello to everyone. So hello to Facebook, hello to YouTube, hello to Instagram. I am so excited to have you guys here. I also wanted you to take a moment just to say, hey, let me know that you're listening. Let me know that you can hear me and see me all right. If you are interested in working with me, because I get questions all the time, people listen or they watch and they're like, well, Sydney, how do I work with you? I want to let you know that my law school application boot camps are enrolling. There is exactly one spot left as of April 9th, 12 p.m. Eastern Time in the April boot camp. So there's only one spot left. There's only 2 spots left in the May boot camp. And then there's some spots in the June boot camp. So if you want to get ahead of the process, and to be honest, I know that we are, moving away from actually what is considered early. I mean, it's April, and soon it will be May. And so you really do want to get a start on your personal statement drafts, your diversity drafts, your optional essays. So now is really honestly the time that you need to start if you haven't made an LSAT plan yet, if you don't know when you're taking it, if you're not sure how you're going to be prepared to apply in the fall, you want to get started on that planning right now. So I have 1 spot left for my April boot camp, and I have 2 spots left for my May boot camp. And you can find out all that information online at smontgomeryconsulting.com/bootcamp. So let's just dive in, right? The first thing that I want to talk to you about is what is a seat deposit. So after you have applied and you've submitted all of your applications and you've gotten some offers back, hopefully you've started to get some yeses, and they're going to ask you that you deposit, that you put down a certain amount of money to reserve your space. Usually seat deposits range anywhere from $400 to, $1,000, $2,000. That first deposit will go as an applied payment to your first tuition. So it's not just money that they're keeping and pocketing. That money, that deposit money, is going to go towards your tuition. But it is your way of saying, yes, I'm coming to the school and I am going to keep my word, and I'm going to put down some money, some earnest money, as a way to help you know that I'm serious about committing. Why do law schools even have deposits? So I actually think that there's a lot of equity concerns around deposits. I don't think that deposits are necessary. There are some law schools that don't have deposits. Shout out to Berkeley as one of them. They take you at your word. You say you're coming and they want you to come, and they are going to take you at your word that you are not just saying that to 5 different schools. They need to be able to plan for their class. So from the law school side, they need to know how many people are actually enrolling. And that's important because if they have a class of 500 and they get 400 yeses, that means that they can take 100 people off the wait list. But if they have a class of 500 and 500 people say yes, that means that they're not going to take anyone off of the wait list. So that's really important. They need to know what they can do with the waitlist candidate so that they can fill their class. So it's really important to them that they can trust you at your word, that when you say you're going to come, they're going to come, and they're going to bank on that for the decisions that they make in the future. A lot of schools are concerned that students are going to just say yes to a bunch of places, and then at that point that doesn't really mean as much, because then you don't know if the 500 yeses are true yeses or if only 250 of those yeses are real yeses. They don't know how many people to take off the wait list. So that's kind of the theory behind having a financial deposit as well, because most people aren't going to put down multiple deposits and waste their money like that. But it is an equity concern, because if you are someone who is planning to take out student loans in combination with scholarships, you usually can't use student loans or scholarships to pay that deposit amount. That deposit amount usually has to come from your paycheck or out of pocket. And like I said, they can range anywhere from $400 to $2,000. So you don't really know exactly which school you're going to deposit to. So you don't really know exactly how much you need to budget for your deposit. So I would actually say to start planning for your deposit early, right? Maybe in January or in December, start putting some money away for your law school deposit. This is one of the benefits, by the way, of applying early. When you apply in September or October, you hear back from schools a lot sooner, and you start to get an understanding of what your deposit amount is going to be sooner, so that by the time April or May comes around, you are financially ready to make that deposit. As opposed to if you apply later, let's say you don't hear back from a school until April. Well, their deposit deadline is probably still April 15th or May 1st, and that doesn't give you a lot of time to come up with the deposit money. So it's just another reason why applying earlier in the cycle is going to make it easier for you to plan ahead and to have the deposit money that you need. Now, a lot of times students will ask me, getting to that second point, well, I'm not really sure what law school I want to go to. Can I put down more than one deposit? When is that okay? Is it unethical? Will the law schools know that I've done that? And I really want to address that. So there used to be a policy through the Law School Admission Council that it really was kind of acting in bad faith for applicants to tell two schools that they are going to deposit and that they're going to come, because you're not going to both schools. So LSAC used to send out a list to law schools with the names of students who had double deposited. Understandably, if a school received your name on the list, they may decide actually to rescind your offer and that you cannot come to that school anymore. So it used to be a really big deal. However, a couple of years ago, the DOJ, the Department of Justice, ruled that it was antitrust, anti-competition. It was, not fair to students who are, in this instance, consumers and customers of the school, that there needed to be healthy competition. So no, at this point, law schools will not know if you have double deposited and put down deposits at more than one school. So there's really no negative that will happen if you do that, besides the fact that it is kind of unethical and unfair to students who are on the wait list. Now, there are some caveats with this. One of the things is that there are a lot of scholarship offers that say, hey, if you accept this scholarship offer and if you give us a deposit, you are giving us your word that you are going to withdraw from every other offer. They're expecting you to do that. I guess you don't technically have to do that, but you do run the risk of going deliberately going afoul of what the scholarship and what the school is saying. Remember, you're trying to be a lawyer. And I think that's really important when we're dealing with, meeting admissions professionals in the beginning, negotiating financial aid, every kind of dealing that you're dealing with the school. It should be professional, it should be ethical, it should be with good morals and good judgments, because you want to be a lawyer. So starting off your legal career lying is not really the best way to start, and it kind of goes to your character. But, if you were to say, however, to another school, hi, I'm withdrawing my deposit because I have put my deposit down somewhere else. Let's say school X said, if you want this scholarship, you have to withdraw from other offers, and you put down a deposit. And then school Y, you're still kind of thinking about it. So you put down a deposit there. And then you decide, I really would rather go to school Y. school X might get upset if you tell them that you also deposited at school Y, which you should never do because that's just not smart. But if you were to tell them that, and they may be upset, and then they may let the other school know, and that's pretty important. Dean Z at the University of Michigan actually has a fantastic video on double depositing that you should basically all watch, because she is always dropping gems on YouTube, and it's really a good way for you to hear straight from an admissions professional's mouth how they view double depositing. From my point of view, from an ethical point of view, you're taking 2 seats and you're only going to one of them, especially in a cycle in which the applications were up almost 35% this year. Taking 2 seats when someone else might be waitlisted or have no seats is not acting in good faith. It's not acting with good morals and good judgments. You're not helping your fellow man out. And also, you're not helping yourself out, because you still have to make a decision. At the end of the day, you can still only go to one law school. So putting down 2 deposits at the exact same time, barring any kind of extraneous circumstances, doesn't really help you. You still want to make the decision and start committing early to the school that you're going to go to, so that you can get plugged in with the admitted students events, so that you can start figuring out what you need in terms of moving costs or books or classes. Just delaying that really delays your ability to start preparing for that. So let me stop here and check in before I keep going and see if you guys have any questions. Hello, Angie. I'm so happy that you're able to be with us today. It's so great to see you. Let me just see if you guys have any questions. And I know that I'm also on YouTube, so we'll be checking to make sure that there are no questions there as well. Let me know if you guys have any issues, or if you've had any issues with seat deposits too. We're going to continue to talk about when it would be a good, oh, hello, Natalia. Hello, Morgan. When it would be a good, maybe not good, but like other acceptable reasons for double depositing. So I had a student who is in Canada. And she's between Canadian schools and she's between United States schools, right? And so the Canadian deadline for depositing was a lot earlier than the United States schools. And so that was one situation in which I was like, look, you haven't heard back from some of your US schools. I think it would be fine for you to deposit in Canada, because the deposit rules there said that you had to withdraw from all other Canadian schools, but then still wait to hear back from the US schools. Now, here's the difference between double depositing and just depositing one at a time. And there's nothing unethical about depositing one at a time, other than the fact that it's expensive. So let's say you deposit at school X because you're still waiting on schools Y and Z. Now, you get school Y and you're like, actually, I really love school Y more. What you're going to do, what you should do, instead of holding 2 seats, is you should withdraw at that point from school X and then deposit at school Y. That is completely fine and completely ethical. Now, these deposits are more or less non-refundable, so again, you're going to be out some money, but that is a very ethical way of doing that, because students often ask me, well, what if I'm waitlisted? If I deposit at this school, does that mean I'm no longer on the wait list for those other schools? No. And so this is when we get into really tricky matters. There are situations in which you could feasibly be putting down a lot of deposits and kind of losing out on a lot of money. So let's say I'm going to expand X, Y, and Z because there are not enough letters in that little subset there. Let's start with A. Let's say you really love school A. You love schools B, C, D, and E way more. But of the schools that you've gotten into, A is your favorite. So you are going to deposit at school A by the April 15th deadline. Okay. You are staying on the wait list for schools B, C, and D. Of those, school D is actually your top choice school. You like school B, C, and D in that order, right? Or actually in the reverse order. So you like D a lot. You like C a little bit less than D. You like B a little bit less than C. But you like B more than A. I hope I'm not losing you. Stay with me here. You've deposited at school A. Then you get a call in May. School B is taking you off the wait list. You're so happy. You are going to now withdraw from school A and deposit at school B. However, a month later, in June, school C is like, hold on, we have a spot for you. And you're like, oh my goodness, school C, I never thought I would get into school C. I'm now going to withdraw from school B. And are you with me? Now, it is August. And school D, maybe that's Harvard. I don't know. School D is like, listen, we have a spot for you. You want to withdraw from school C and deposit at school D. All of these things are completely ethical. However, you have now put down 4 deposits in total. You're only going to one school, and deposits at A, B, and C, that's just kind of sunken cost. You have to kind of think about how you feel about that, because that is a very realistic and possible situation. When you get off of waitlist, usually you only have 24 to 48 hours. Sometimes you have a week to decide. So it's not like you're going to get off the wait list at all of your schools at the same time. I wish that would happen, but they usually fall like dominoes. And the reason that happens is because of the withdrawing, right? If school D is ranked really high, as students get pulled up to higher schools, that's going to open up slots for other schools, right? And so that is why waitlist offers don't come all at one time, because it's kind of like this cascading domino effect that starts when waitlist season happens. Now, I want to take a minute here and pause, because I have received so many questions about waitlists. And this is what I want to know from you guys. I am thinking about having a master class right in May, right when waitlist season really opens, on navigating waitlists. Is that something that you guys would want to see from me? I don't want to make it if you guys feel like you're good, but I really want to serve you guys. So if you guys would be interested in a masterclass on waitlists, let me know. Drop it in the comments. I will absolutely create that masterclass for you. I'm going to make it just for you guys. I'm going to make it based off of the examples and the questions that you have, the things that you are really dealing with. We're going to dive in. We're going to dive into examples. We're going to dive in with templates for how to negotiate it, with scenarios. But let me know in the comments if a waitlist masterclass is something that you guys want to see from me. And I will definitely make that happen for you guys in early May, because I want to make sure this is such an unprecedented year, such an unprecedented cycle, that I want to make sure that I'm serving you guys as best as I can to navigate it. Okay, so we have talked about deposits, right? And we've talked about when is it okay to do one school and then the other. I would say if you are maybe waiting on some external information and a school, I mean, most schools are not, if a school hasn't prohibited you from double depositing, right? There's no scholarship that says you're going to withdraw all your offers. There's no, language that you signed when you put the deposit down that you're withdrawing all your offers, and it's totally fine. And you just need a little bit more time to figure out an extra situation, like maybe there's a health thing or a family thing, like maybe you're trying to get your kids into a different school system, you're not really sure if you can move or not, and those are the things that you're kind of contemplating. Then it's kind of okay to put down 2 deposits as long as you're not going against any of the policies that the school has put out. So I want to take a minute to talk to you about what happened this week with Notre Dame as well, because I don't know how many of you read on Above the Law. I actually co-authored that piece with my good friend Kyle McEntee of Law School Transparency. Law School Transparency runs the pre-law platform, which if you don't know about the pre-law platform, you're actually asleep. The pre-law platform is totally free for students, and it gives you the ability to create your own law school list based on geographic factors, your numbers, but also median salaries, the debt that you want to go into. It allows you to look at schools' diversity rankings, what kinds of jobs students get after those schools. There's a wealth of information on Law School Transparency. They have their LST wizard, but they also have the pre-law platform where you can kind of track your application materials as you go. Now, if you're working with me, you also will get access to the Legal Career Compass, which is an assessment that helps you figure out not only what kind of law you're interested in, but also what kind of work environments you would be best at. Big firm, small firm, medium firm, what kind of management style you like, how you like to work collaboratively with others. It'll also talk to you about some study skills and that sort of thing. And if you're working with me, I will be able to track your progress through your law school applications on the pre-law platform as well. But the pre-law platform, which is literally just prelawplatform.com, is completely free to students. So absolutely go on it. So Kyle McEntee and I penned an article on Above the Law about the Notre Dame Law School seat deposit situation this week. We actually broke the story. That's been picked up by law.com. It's been picked up by Inside Higher Ed. Let me just give you an understanding of what happened in case you are not familiar. Basically, Notre Dame's offer of acceptance this year, which they said is the same thing that they did last year, is that you had until April 15th to accept their deposits or until they've reached the maximum number of deposits. And that is very unusual for schools to do and for schools to say, because generally they don't give offers to more people than they reasonably think based on algorithms will say yes. So what that means is that schools over the time know that maybe 33% of students will say yes. So if they're trying to fill a class of 1,000, they might give 3,000 offers knowing that 1,000 people will say yes. Now, this year was, like I said, unprecedented. Law school applications were up about 35%. What most schools did is they admitted fewer people and waitlisted more people so that they didn't run into a situation of having more people say yes than there were spots. Clearly, that is not what Notre Dame did. Or they tried, but they weren't very successful at it. And so law schools over-enroll their classes all the time. And what usually schools do if they accidentally get 200 people that say yes to 100 spots is that they will offer the extra 100 people a scholarship of some sort to defer a year. It is very common practice. Sometimes they will just make a bigger class, but there are a lot of issues with that, sometimes with faculty. Actually, Spivey Consulting Group, they have a podcast episode on this as well, and he kind of breaks down what some of the faculty concerns are with just having a larger class. And so definitely take a listen. I think that podcast episode is only 5 minutes. So Notre Dame, again, did not choose to do any of these things. Instead, what they did is they said, that we'll take deposits. We've given you an offer of acceptance, but we're going to, just take the first however many people say yes. And then after that, you're going to just be on the wait list. So on March 19th, they sent out an email because people were concerned. They were concerned that they wouldn't have enough time to make a decision, that their spot was going to disappear before their very eyes. They worked really hard and they got admitted to Notre Dame. So these are all admitted students who are worried that their spot was going to disappear. And Notre Dame was like, oh, don't worry about that. We've only overfilled our class twice in 20 years. It's so unlikely to happen again. Even if it did happen, we would only have maybe 1 or 2 days before the deposit deadline would we close the deposit form. There's really nothing for you to be concerned about. However, on April 6th, right, 9 days before the April 15th deposit deadline, they sent an email in the morning saying that they were 67% full, which understandably caused panic and pandemonium. So then, of course, people rushed to deposit, those who could. Now, Notre Dame's deposit is $600, so obviously not everyone could rush to deposit that day. They sent another email out at about 4 p.m. Or 5 p.m. saying that they had already reached 80% of their deposits and that they would let people know when they had reached 90%. But they didn't even get a chance to do that because at 6 p.m. they said that they were completely full. So what happened is between 11 a.m. and 6 p.m., they went from 67% full to 100% full, and basically anyone who wasn't reading their email that day, was busy, was working, didn't have $600 that day to deposit, which honestly, most people don't just have, like, if you were like, Sydney, I need $600 today, I'd be like, I don't know. A lot of people don't have $600. that they can just drop at a moment's notice. And so all those students ended up basically having their offer of admission rescinded and told that they would be considered along with waitlist candidates. Now, again, I spoke in the beginning about how inequitable I think deposits are, because deposits favor those who have disposable income and disposable funds outside of traditional student loans and scholarships to be able to pay. If I am not anticipating paying my tuition from my own pocket, if I am anticipating paying my tuition from student loans and scholarships, then you telling me that this $1,000, $600 deposit is going to go to my tuition, it doesn't make me feel any better about the fact that I have to come up with $600 right now. So on its face, I think that they pose an equity issue that law schools should really be considering when we think about the additional hurdles, especially first generation and minority students have to go through to break into the legal sphere. However, having a situation in which you basically tell people that they just have to be quick with their deposits, and that the people that will be able to join the law school class are the people who deposit before other people. Because when you set up a situation in which it's until we fill our spots, you are inevitably creating a situation in which it's first in time, gets the prize. Those who are last to deposit will not get the spot that they worked hard for, they wrote essays for, they took the LSAT exam for, did everything else that anyone else did. They should all have until April 15th to deposit, because everyone should be on an even playing field. We shouldn't be prioritizing people who have $600 quicker than other people when they put in the same amount of effort and still got into the school. Additionally, some people were given generous merit scholarships, which means that Notre Dame saw that they were not only just the student that they felt would thrive and do well at the school, but that their academic qualifications and their applications were so great that they wanted to give them a merit scholarship. Some people had full ride scholarships because Notre Dame really valued them that much. And yet, some of those same people are now waitlisted and had their offer rescinded because they couldn't pay fast enough. And I just feel like that is the most despicable thing that I have ever heard of. And it really points to the fact that there needs to be more voices speaking up about how law schools are conducting themselves and how the admissions process is overlooking first generation and minority or lower income, or honestly just your average Joe, because a lot of people don't have $600 to just drop within a 6 hours notice. And so we need to start holding these schools accountable. That's why I was very happy to have penned that article on Above the Law with Cal McEntee. You can find that, and I will link to that below so that you can read for yourself kind of what went down. I don't think it's likely to be something that a lot of other schools follow suit. I wouldn't worry, especially if you're in this cycle and you saw what happened with Notre Dame. I wouldn't worry that other schools will do the same thing, mostly because Notre Dame is taking a lot of flack for it. And to be honest, I think that the spokesperson's responses have been subpar. Quite frankly, a little lazy. But I don't think other schools want to put themselves in the same situation that Notre Dame has done. And I think it really shows the character of a school, whether you have been accepted and you deposited or you're waitlisted or whatever. How they treat you in the application process can be indicative of how they treat you as a student and what their values are. And so the complete utter lack of respect and just disregard for students of all socioeconomic means, I think, is reflective of how their school will treat their admitted students, right? When you're actually there, the policies and the fees and the procedures that they will use actually at the school. So I think that students should take note of how schools act at this early juncture, because it doesn't get any better, right? They don't start treating you a whole lot better once you're already there because you're there and they've locked you in. This is kind of the best that they treat you. So no matter what school, whether it's Notre Dame or any other school, I want you to take note of how schools are treating you, and whether you feel valued and whether you feel like it's a community that will support you. Now, the actions of a few people in admissions, if you had a person that was maybe rude on the phone or something, I don't know that I would say that that's indicative of the school at large. But I want you to look at the policies in general And then I want you to look at the responses, because sometimes schools make bad decisions or they have poor policies. But when you follow up with them and you call them on it and you say, hey, this really didn't make me feel great, or I feel like this is unfair and inequitable, their response should course correct. And I feel like Notre Dame's response right now just speaks even more volumes about where their ethics and their morals lie. So let me know if you have any thoughts on that. Drop them in the comments. We have one more thing to cover before I kind of pray us out today, and that is getting an extension for your deposit. So first, let me check to make sure if you guys have any questions or comments. Okay. So I think we're good. So the last thing that I want to talk to you about is getting an extension for your deposits. And a lot of times students will ask me this because, not to use letters again, but here we go. School A has given you all the information that you need. You have the financial aid. You're not waiting for them to reconsider anything else. And then school B is just sleeping. I don't know. They haven't given you what you need. And the deposit deadlines might be similar, or in some cases, deposit A might be a little bit before deposit B. And so you really want to have the information from deposit B or school B before you deposit, but deposit A is coming up. Now you can always ask. I say ask not, receive not. You can always ask school A, I'm waiting on information for a couple of schools that I anticipate getting within the next week. And if you do that, I would maybe follow up with the schools that you're waiting with. And when I say follow up, I think a lot of times we get into this like kind of email culture. But I want you to think also about picking up the phone and calling. When we're talking about time-sensitive things like wait lists and deposits, or if you just haven't heard back and things are getting antsy, call them. And I know that with COVID, a lot of schools are deferring to their email, but at least give it a try, because sometimes you can get someone on the phone who can answer your question a little bit quicker than they would in just an email. So that is just something to consider. But, call school B and say, I have a deposit deadline that's coming up on April 1st. Do you think that you would be able to give me information in the next week? I would always start with the school that you're waiting on and tell them what your first deposit deadline is to see if they can move any faster. If they cannot, or if they say we really don't think we'll be able to give you information until April 15th, then you can go to the first school and say, I'm waiting on, you don't have to say which schools they are. I'm waiting on 2 other schools. I was told that I could possibly receive information in the next 7 to 14 days. Is it possible to get an extension? I think just asking for a blank extension for some time in the future when you have more information is not likely to be very successful. But if you have some concrete details like that, they might be more willing to say yes. However, they can say no, because they have done everything that they need to do, and it is really not fair for them to have to wait for another school. So in that case, kind of going back to the very beginning of the video, your choices are really to, if you like school A, really your choice is to deposit there. And then if school B comes back later with more information, withdraw from school A and deposit at school B. Again, understanding that this is sunken costs here a little bit, but the deposit landscape, and I'm going to really keep stressing this, is something that you want to budget for and save for. So a lot of times students don't do this. They just really don't budget for this whole deposit game. I would say have at least $2,000 on the ready so that if you have to make moves throughout the summer, you're able to do that and to make sure that you're saving a spot at the school that you want while also not giving up spots. And, I would never want you to say no to school A because you're waiting on school B and then school B doesn't come back with the money that you need. That would be tragic because you've already said no to school A. So, always have something in hand. Don't let go of something in hopes for something else. Make sure that you're able to secure the bag, secure what you need, and then operate from that place. So that's what I would say about getting extensions. There's a question, can deposits be waived? Yes. And so that was kind of, Notre Dame was saying, oh, well, if it was a hardship, students could have asked us to waive. But one, nobody knows that. And two, with what time? Because it was a 6-hour mad dash. So what I would say is, if you are someone who you know that deposits are going to be an issue, two things. One, apply in September. I don't know how many times I can say this. Apply in September or October. Because then you will find out from schools in November or December, and you will have more time to ask them to waive. Some schools will just waive it if you ask. Some schools have an application or a process to prove that you have some financial hardship. So that process can take some time. You don't want to be playing that game in April. The other thing I would say is make sure that you find out, maybe even as you're applying, what are the processes for deposit waivers at this time. I think that can be one thing that you can be proactive about, because some schools may not waive deposits. And so you need to know which schools will and which schools won't waive deposits. Okay, so let me see. Okay, someone says, if I want to apply in September, what is the latest LSAT I can take? August? If you want to apply in September, yes, August is the latest LSAT that you can take. However, applying in October is still very, very good. So there is an early October time frame, or an early October LSAT, and you can take that early October LSAT and still apply by the end of October, and it will be totally fine. Oh no, Morgan says the live stream keeps cutting out. Hopefully it doesn't keep doing that. We are almost done, so maybe it can hold on just a little bit. All right, so let me take your questions right now before I pray us out, because we're actually at the 45-minute mark. So this is pretty good. I want to make sure that I've answered all your questions about deposits. And I think, to go to Astrid's question from Instagram, I want to just walk you guys through really quick a timeline. If you are thinking about taking the June LSAT, you need to now. Probably might be a little too late, because I like to say you need at least 3 to 6 months to study for the LSAT. So even right now, you only have 2 months to study for the June LSAT. I would not recommend it. Now, the June LSAT is the last 3-section LSAT flex. In August, it goes to a 4-section LSAT flex, with 1 section being experimental. So you want to be cognizant of that as you're studying for the LSAT. So let's say right now you are thinking you're taking the August LSAT. You want to still be solidifying your LSAT plan right now. So if you are thinking about taking the August LSAT and you have not done anything to prepare for the process, the very first thing that I want you to do is take an LSAT diagnostic. You can find one on Khan Academy. You can Google LSAT diagnostic test, Khan Academy. You want to do that like this weekend. That's your weekend project. If you are thinking about taking the August LSAT. If you want to apply in September or October, you're really looking at the August or October LSAT, which means you really need to start. And you need to really be thinking about how you are going to go through the application process. I say it takes at least 3 to 4 months to get all of your essays written for all of your schools. So, again, what does that mean? Okay, June, July, August, September. June might be like the latest I would say to start, but you're gonna really be doing a lot if you are also just starting with the LSAT. So I would like to say you should start preparing for both now, in April or in May. That's why I said there's only 1 spot left for my April boot camp, and there's only 2 spots left for my May boot camp. Because if you're trying to do both at the same time, which most of my students do, you want to give yourself a little bit more than just 3 to 4 months to get everything together. Unless you don't have a job and you just have all day long, then fine. 3 to 4 months is totally fine. But most of you have a job, or you're in school, or you have other responsibilities. So trying to get your entire law school application process done in 4 months is really pushing it. So you want to be starting now. You want to take your LSAT diagnostic now. You want to start brainstorming your personal statement now. You want to start doing the things that you can so that when September and October come around, you are able to apply early. We saw with this past cycle that students that applied early were so much more successful than students that applied late. Not just for scholarships and deposits and financial information, but also just generally acceptances, because this was a really competitive cycle. The percent of students that scored above a 175 rose like almost 99%, right? I don't know, and nobody knows, what the score breakdown is going to be with this new 4-section LSAT Flex. So the best thing that you can do is apply early and, be among that first wave before we see kind of what the scores look like. All right, so let me know if you have any questions about that. If you have any questions about how to work with me or any questions about how to get started, you can always message me. You can email me at info@smontgomeryconsulting.com. Like I said, the bootcamp page is smontgomeryconsulting.com/bootcamp. Below in the links, you will also find my free essential guide to applying to law school. It's a 62-page guide that will walk you through so many of the different steps of the application process. You will also see a link to my free workshop on how to maximize your law school application timing and your essays. So definitely watch that. It's about an hour or so. And there's a special giveaway for 2 free hours of consulting with me if you enroll in a bootcamp after watching the webinar. So definitely make sure that you do that as well. And yeah, if there are no other questions, I will go ahead and pray us out. Let me just see. You guys were very active today. I love the afternoons. I know I keep saying this, but I love coming to you guys over your lunch hour. It's just so nice to be like in an energized time period. Okay. Oh, awesome. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today. Thank you for another Friday, another chance to answer and be of guidance and support to all of these students that are striving to go to law school. I ask a special blessing right now over everyone who is navigating seat deposits. I ask a blessing over those who are trying to make a decision. They're trying to decide between loan repayment assistance programs. They're negotiating scholarships. They're trying to decide about cost of living and geography. They're trying to decide about rankings and campus climate. They're trying to decide about what kind of law and what school will best suit their needs. This is such a confusing time, and for some it's a stressful time. So I ask that you would send your angel in to just alleviate any concerns, alleviate any doubt and stress, and really bring clarity. That's what I'm asking for today, God. I'm asking for clarity in this process. I'm asking that you would make the path really, really clear, that you would close doors that need to be closed and open doors that need to be open. I'm asking that you would also bring providence, dear Heavenly Father, and provision for seat deposit money. I ask that for those who are just starting the process, you would give them the wisdom and the abundance to save so that when they are in this position next year, they have the funds available. For I know that you would not give us any burden that is too heavy, and that you would not bring us this far to fail. You would not bring us to the place of getting accepted to the school that you want us to go to without the money to put down a seat deposit. So I ask in advance that you would bless the hearts of the admissions directors, that you would grant deposit waiver requests, that you would grant fee waiver requests on the outset, that students would be able to get their fees waived for applying to these schools. I ask blessings over all of those who are doing LSAC fee waivers to get fees waived for the LSAT exam, dear Heavenly Father. I ask that you would be with the students in this time, that you would be with all students who are just thinking about the process, just thinking about going to law school, that they are not right sure what the next step is, that you would illuminate their path, that you would help them on their diagnostic exams. I know that there are students who have fear about taking diagnostic exams and anxiety about the LSAT, but that you would not let anxiety be a hindrance to beginning the process, that you would not let them be paralyzed in fear, but that you would give them a spirit of courage and encouragement, and that you would give them the motivation and the proactivity to start this step, because you have called them here for a reason. So I ask that even if they do not have faith in themselves, that they have faith in you enough to start this step, and that start the process, dear Heavenly Father, and that you would guide them in every step of the way. I ask that you would send forth angels to just be with them and comfort them in their time. I ask that you would send guidance, that you would send test prep books, that you would send tutors, that you would send all kinds of information that they need. I ask that the people that need